Hi everyone. I've been reading from my book, Activating Your Inner Superhero. I'm on chapter 1, the intro. This is about my experience with having joint replacements and how I use the analogy of superheroes and how they overcome, and how I use the analogy to overcome my own circumstances. So, we're still in chapter 1, so I'm going to continue. At first, I rejected my diagnosis. It was so unacceptable to me that I needed hip replacements that I delayed having surgery for 3 years. And I suffered unimaginable pain day after day until the day of my surgery. You don't blame me, do you? I mean, does Janet Jackson have fake parts? Wait, that came out wrong. What I mean is, does Charlize Theron have to tell men she's on dates with that she has fake hip joints? Not a normal conversation for a 30-something to have on a date. At the time, and I didn't want to say that. It started when I heard this clinking noise when I moved my legs certain ways. I thought it was weather, age, anything except something being wrong with my body. That was not an option. According to my orthopedic surgeon, it was rare to see someone at my age, I was in my early 30s, with hip cartilage as damaged as mine. So they always asked, were you in a horrible car accident? My answer was no to doctor number 1. He was mean, and in 5 minutes into our conversation, he said, you sure are unlucky. I felt myself crack inside. He said, did you have braces on your legs as a child? I said, no. Doctor number 2. He was 2 hours late coming into the waiting room because he had a hip emergency. And he said, did this happen to someone else in your family? And I had to admit my grandma had it done too, but I didn't want to because I figured they would say that was my direction as well. Your grandma had it, now so do you. And doctor number 2 also told me, maybe you could just take a cane with you and go on your dates and think about having surgery in another 20 years. I'm like, 20 years of this kind of pain? I don't even remember telling him I was single, so why was he talking about dates? But asking me to take a cane on one was like asking Batman to stop driving his sports car. Doctor number 3. He had kind eyes, and he ended up being my surgeon. I would have preferred a breast reduction instead of a hip replacement, but there we were. Doctor number 3 said, let's get you some relief. So I had the surgery. And now I wear leather pants. I love me some leather. If you see me, you have no clue my body has been through what it's been through. I teach cycle classes, and instead you would just think I'm normal. You would have no idea. And the best analogy I have to show is how I overcame this is to use superhero analogies. I learned how to be fly, indestructible, from the inside out, like Wolverine, Wonder Woman, Iron Man, Batman, the list goes on. I love Marvel, I love DC Comics, I love superheroes. So the best thing I can say to anyone facing crappy life experiences is to go inside yourself. Find your inner superhero. It's there waiting to come out into the world to help you shine, to give the world what you were meant to give it while you're here and before you leave. And so just so you know, I use the term superheroes, but I don't just mean the people, the characters in comic books and movie screens. A superhero can be a grandparent who was there to remind you were loved. A superhero can be a child who stands up to a bully, or a man or woman who overcomes life-threatening circumstances or diagnoses to go on to have a happy life. In our current world, a superhero can be a doctor, a nurse, a person working in a grocery store, a person working in Starbucks who's willing to put themselves at risk for service. A single parent could even be a superhero, of course. You decide what the term superhero means to you. Maybe your superhero wears a military uniform because they too put their life at risk. You define it. Maybe you watch Flashdance, the movie from the 80s, I think, where Jennifer Beals has to walk in and try out for the dance academy. Google it if you don't know what I'm talking about. Flashdance. It's awesome, and she's a superhero too. Maybe even Nelson Mandela, big time superhero, in the jail for fighting for freedom, gets out of jail after 20 plus years, becomes president. Superhero. So I'll talk more about superhero stories in future readings. Still in chapter 1, talking about superheroes. What life circumstances do you need to overcome? Dig deep. There's more strength than you can realize and that you can imagine inside, available for you to overcome. I did it. I'll show you my path. Maybe you can identify some piece of my story that connects with your life story. You can laugh at it, but you can also take strength from it and overcome. I love you so much. I hope you're staying safe and being well, and I'll read more later. Have a good night, day, evening, wherever you are. Sending you love.